Today we're going to compare the two-tone Rolex Root Beer with the Guinness to find out exactly which one deserves a place on your wrist. For those who prefer the official names, I am of course referring to the GMT-Master II, reference 126711CHNR, as well as the 126713 GRNR. I will reveal the exact model that I would choose at the end of the video, but first let's take a look at what sets these watches apart. First off, I'll talk about the technical details of the GMT-Master II and how it actually wears on the wrist. After that, I'll share my top 5 reasons to choose the Root Beer as well as the Guinness. Both watches feature the reliable 40mm case size with a lug-to-lug measurement of 48mm and a height of 12mm, making them relatively slim for a GMT automatic watch. Rolex introduced the GMT-Master II in 1982, retaining the 40mm diameter of the original GMT Master. However, the modern version is known as the Super Case due to its wider lugs, larger bezel, and overall bigger profile, which has remained unchanged since the first ceramic model was introduced in 2005. For reference, I have a 17cm wrist, so you can see how the watch fits in the wrist shots. While opinions may vary, I believe this case size suits most people with a wrist size of 6.5 inches and above. Both of these watches are bimetal, with the obvious difference being the colour of the gold. You'll see that the gold parts on the watch are polished, whereas the steel components exhibit both brushed and polished surfaces. Rolex uses 18-karat gold made in their own foundry in all of their current production watches. Unlike some rose gold alloys, Rolex Everose mixes gold, copper and platinum with a specific formula so that it doesn't tarnish over time. In terms of weight, there isn't much difference between them. The Jubilee bracelet is a little lighter than the Oyster, but I can't imagine the difference will be a consideration for most people. Both models feature an Oyster case with a triple lock crown, which is indicated by 3 dots under the Rolex logo. The water resistance is officially stated as 100 meters, but I wouldn't be surprised if it can withstand greater pressures. The movement in the current GMT-Master II is the caliber 3285, with a power reserve of 70 hours, up from 42 hours in the previous generation, and it shares this movement with the Explorer II. The watch is designed for those who need to track multiple time zones using the GMT hand and bidirectional 24-hour bezel. You'll find the date window positioned at 3 o'clock, which is magnified by the Cyclops on the sapphire crystal. Those who travel a lot or work with people across the world will benefit most from a GMT watch. Whether you choose the Root Beer on the Oyster bracelet or the Guinness with the Jubilee, you'll find a tapered design on both. The bracelets have polished center links with brushed outer links and measure 20mm between the lugs and then taper down to 15.5mm at the clasp. Both come with a double locking clasp along with the Easy Link, so you get 5mm of adjustment should you need to loosen the strap on the fly. You could argue that the Oyster and Jubilee bracelet wear slightly differently. The Jubilee has more articulation and more ventilation, but in my experience they're both excellent, and it's certainly not a deal breaker in terms of any significant difference in comfort and fit. Another common feature is the dial. Both have a gloss black finish and chromalite hour markers, with gold borders to match the tone of the watch. The dial text denoting the model is yellow gold on the Guinness and rose gold on the Root Beer. Let's talk about pricing. There isn't a great deal of difference in the retail price of the Root Beer and the Guinness. The 2024 retail price is £14,750 for the Root Beer and £15,050 for the Guinness at the time we're recording this. The interesting thing to note is that while you might expect a Jubilee bracelet to cost more than an Oyster, which is true in this comparison, rose gold usually costs more than yellow gold in the same model line, which is not true when you compare the Root Beer to the Guinness. In the secondary market right now in August 2024, the Root Beer can be found from around £14,500 depending on age and condition. It was released in 2018, so there are more in the market compared to the Guinness that debuted in 2023. That watch can be found from around £15,500. Okay, before I give you my top 5 reasons to go with the GMT-Master II Guinness, I want to talk you through my top 5 reasons to choose the Root Beer. Now, I'm going to state the obvious and say that these two watches share more similarities than differences, but I'm going to do my best to give you some solid reasons to choose one over the other. For those leaning towards the root beer, the first reason is the rose gold is a little more subtle than yellow gold, so some people will feel more comfortable wearing the root beer as a daily watch. The added weight of the gold in the watch is something that I personally like and find satisfying on the wrist. However, that is something you can enjoy with either watch. The two-tone certainly looks more expensive compared to a steel model, which may be a plus point or it might not depending on your personal style. Reason number 2 is the bezel on the root beer, which is a combination of black and brown. These colours complement the rose gold and are easy to style with most outfits. The brown is one of the more subtle ways to wear a two-tone bezel when compared to a louder GMT from Rolex. It's a neutral colour that lots of people will have in their wardrobe. Number 3 is one that might be a deal breaker, and that is the oyster bracelet. If you're comparing these two watches and have a preference for the 3-link bracelet, then the root beer is the one to go with. The oyster bracelet is often regarded as more sporty and masculine, but it's just a matter of opinion, and one that will be debated for as long as people have an interest in Rolex watches. The fourth reason is the model heritage. Rolex first introduced the root beer in 1970 with the reference 1675. This watch had a brown dial and is fitted with a brown and gold bezel. These watches feature distinct hour markers on the dials and are nicknamed nipple dials. You can find them on oyster and jubilee bracelets. The vintage root beer is also associated with the American actor and film director Clint Eastwood, who wore the watch in numerous movies and outside of the film sets too. So, those who enjoy the history of a watch model may value the heritage of the root beer. The final reason is that the signature black and brown bezel is only available on a two-tone watch or on the full rose gold reference. You cannot configure it on a steel watch. This might be a reason to pick the root beer over the Guinness, as quite recently with the announcement of the Bruce Wayne, you can now get the black and grey bezel in steel. I don't think this will be a major point of consideration for most people, but some might feel that the lack of steel option makes the black and brown combination more prestigious. Now on to my top 5 reasons to choose the Rolex GMT-Master II Guinness. Firstly, the Guinness features yellow gold, which is brighter than the rose. It's going to stand out more, especially in combination with the style of the Jubilee bracelet. The result is a more jewellery-esque aesthetic that will feel more special to some people. The steel and yellow gold combination was the only one available for the majority of Rolex's history, so it could be considered more classic when compared to the rose. The second reason is that, like the root beer, the Guinness also has an older relative in the 1675. This time with a black dial and all black bezel, as black and grey wasn't on the menu at this point. The colour combination of steel, black and gold is a classic and isn't one that I can see going out of fashion anytime soon. The older black and gold GMT can also be found with the nipple dial and tritium lume on a Jubilee bracelet, so you can easily spot the heritage design similarities of the modern GMT Guinness. The third reason has to be the black and grey colour combination of the bezel, which is quite subtle and might be a nod to the older faded bezels known as ghost bezels that we see on vintage watches. These colours are going to pair with just about any outfit effortlessly, so the watch is pretty easy to style for those who like to match their watch to their outfit. This is the first time we've seen the use of grey ceramic on a Rolex bezel. I personally like the look and think the cool tones contrast nicely with the gold 24-hour markers. Coming in at number 4 for the GR&R is the Jubilee bracelet. This is the only option, and again, if that's your preferred bracelet, then you have a much simpler choice. The Jubilee has a dressier look to it and is slightly lighter in weight. Some report that it's marginally more comfortable due to the smaller link size, conforming better to the wrist and more gaps for ventilation. The two-tone Jubilee is synonymous with Rolex, largely thanks to the popularity of the Datejust, and I think it suits the GMT model particularly well. If you plan on owning a collection of Rolex professional models, or maybe you already do, then a Jubilee GMT gives you more diversity when paired with a Submariner, Yachtmaster, or Explorer, as those models are limited to oyster bracelets only. So, opting for a Jubilee GMT would give you a more well-rounded collection. And lastly, because the Guinness was only introduced in 2023, there are far fewer examples in the market, and you're less likely to see other people wearing one in the wild. This will likely change over time, but right now, it's rarer than the root beer. Okay, so which one would I personally choose? This is a tough one for me. We're really splitting hairs between them, because I think they are two of the best looking watches in the Rolex catalogue. However, if I had to choose right now, I would pick the Guinness, because I think it would complement a collection marginally better, being one of the few professional models available on a Jubilee. Maybe I'm being influenced by the novelty factor or my slight preference for the Jubilee bracelet, but that would be my choice at this time. So what are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments, and I'd love to know if you have a particular reason why you prefer one over the other. If you'd like to buy or sell either of these watches, head over to watchtrader.co.uk. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a like. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.